We want to bring in a friend here of Live Now from Fox. This is Jeremy Rosenthal, legal analyst, and to help us break down today's big news out of Michigan. And Jeremy, this was a moment that will go down in history as parents going down as well for the role that their son committed.
It's not common to see parents that might be civilly liable if their kid's in a car accident, or if their son or daughter runs over the neighbor's water sprinkler head, something like that. This is obviously quite different. The Crumbleys, the parents, they're going to do time. They're going to go to jail, and they're going to go to jail because of what their son did, and for their acts or their omissions, which the jury found and the judge sentenced them for. We just don't see a lot of this, for sure.
Yeah, no, we don't at all. And I'm just wondering, because we're coming up on the 25th anniversary of the horrific Columbine shooting. And I'm just wondering if that sort of shooting happened today, would those parents face really the same type of heat that we are seeing right now with the Crumbleys?
I think what you had with the Crumbleys, you had a really, really, really tight nexus of facts that kind of led up to the shooting. And I think that the judge characterized it as, look, these were so easily preventable. The Crumbleys were in the school the day of the shooting. The parents were. They had been brought in because their son, the school had seen, and the guidance counselor had seen that the son had written some really disturbing, drawn some really disturbing pictures on some homework, and it hadn't been the first time. And the parents waffled back and forth and made the decision to keep their son in school. They purchased a firearm for him 3, 4, 5 days earlier, and when they purchased it, they put on the paperwork that those weapons were for personal use and that they weren't going to give it to another person. Or job securing the weapon. So I mean, there's no such thing as a good school shooting, but there's certainly probably instances where the shooter is less foreseeable than this one, and I think that's why he got what he got here.
And, Jeremy, I got to put this out there. Some critics would say, okay, if the parents are going down for this, how come the school isn't, or the school district? After all, it happened in school. They had the student in there as well, and they knew about the situation with Ethan. And how come the school is not wrapped up in this as well for being liable?
I mean, maybe, I don't know if anybody has sued them. I don't know if they're a defendant in any civil suits from any of the victims. I will tell you that I think that the guidance counselor from the school testified that we let Ethan go back to class because we thought he was actually more of a danger to himself than anybody else. And mom and dad went back to work. That's why they didn't take him home that day, was because dad had just been laid off. He was picking up shifts, I think, as an Uber driver. And so the kid was going to be home alone. And the guidance counselor was like, well, no, maybe the safest place for him to be is right here with everybody. I don't think, obviously, I think he obviously had the weapon. I think he had taken it from home that morning. And the parents didn't go back and double check to see if he had taken it with him. So I think that's what the school would say. Now, again, I'm not aware whether or not they've actually been sued. It's potential that they're civilly liable.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if anything else comes from that. But now this putting pretty much a wrap on this case that has been obviously horrific for the families. And we heard from those victim impact statements today that you heard in the courtroom. How hard is that for a family member to do those statements when you have the family in there as well? You had the Crumbleys there, and they're looking and listening as well. How much of an impact does that make for the judge as well?
It's incredibly emotional for everybody. Typically, victim impact statements are often after the fact because you don't want the judge to be swayed by them, but those folks typically have the opportunity to address the judge beforehand too. They're subject to cross-examine, which I don't know that it's a very good defense strategy to really go after those types of folks. But they can be very visceral, very emotional, and really, really gut-wrenching, very, very hard to take. I think that prosecutors, victims advocates would tell you that it's very cathartic for folks to get up there and talk about these things. Sometimes you see that these type of victim impact statements, folks can think about these for months and in some cases years. So it's really important for them to get it off their chest. Not everybody does these types of things. But I think the key is, especially when you have a witness who's not necessarily being cross-examined, to compartmentalize that, right? We don't want it necessarily affecting the proceedings because the defendant does have the right to ask them questions. So typically the judge rules, makes their sentence, and then they have the parade of folks who come and say, here's what I'm missing. Here's what we lost. Here's why I'm upset, and get to talk like a victim in those ways.
And lastly, Jeremy, for the Crumbleys here, getting the 10 to 15 year sentence, so they know now what they are facing and what they have to deal with in prison. While for the most part, their life will be frozen pretty much in time while they are serving time. Well, of course, everything outside of prison is still going on. What is it like for them knowing that they are going to eventually have a life after prison, but everything right now is frozen in time?
It's a lot to get their minds around, to be certain. I think if you were to talk to them today, I think they would sound like they had just been hit by a bus. I don't think that they know what hit them quite yet. Getting hit with a sentence like this is extremely heavy. In fact, most jails, most institutions are going to put you on suicide watch if you get a prison sentence, just for the first week or 10 days, so you can get your feet under you, and you can avoid those types of things. But certainly they've got a long time to think about this. You would hope that they reflect, and you would hope that they try to make some good out of it. But we all know that some folks go to prison and they just get angrier. We can't control these things. It was very important for the judge to let the courtroom know and everybody know that she was sending a message through this, that, look, parents, you can't bury your head in the sand. We live in days of heightened mental health issues, heightened social media issues with regards to mental health. And then when we intersect that with firearms and weapons, that it's just not a joke, and everybody takes it as seriously as a heart attack. But I think that's what the judge would really underscore here.
Yeah, that is so true. And Jeremy Rosenthal, thanks so much for joining us on Live Now from Fox. It was definitely a big day there in the courtroom in Michigan. Thanks so much for giving us your insight and analysis. We always appreciate it.
Thank you.